Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making an envelope style card. I'm sure you've seen lots of these in various tutorials. The difference with this one is we have a gift section at the bottom. So the gift section measures 6 inches, it's 2 inches deep, and it's 2 inches high. I will give you the measurements for the pattern paper at the end, but what I would say is as you see the box to come together, think about whether you want to add the pattern paper on before we start gluing elements together. In particular, for the back, you can see that this requires a score across the back. And what I didn't do was add the pattern paper on before I added the back into place. So I will show you how I got around that, but I would recommend that before you add the back into place, you add the pattern paper onto the back, rescore as per the scoring in the video, and then add on the back panel. So that's just something that I've come across as I've put the project together. The piece is made up of a number of components. Having said that, it doesn't take up too much cardstock and it does come together to create what I think is a very nice card gift box combination. So let's put the project together. I'll give you the sizes for all of the pieces to start, and you might want to label these as we go along. The first piece is 7 inches by 5 inches, and this is going to incorporate the front shaped element of the box and the base. Along the 7-inch side, score at half and 6.5, and on the 5-inch side, score at 3 from top to bottom. At 2 inches, score down or make a pencil mark along the score line at 2 inches. So this is going to indicate a cut mark, as it were. Rotate the piece 180 degrees and repeat at 3 inches. So you're going to either have 2 pencil marks on the score line which are opposite each other, or you'll have 2 score lines going straight down to the 1/2 inch score line. And then finally on this piece, along the long edge, you'll have a pencil mark at 3.5 inches. The next piece will be the sides. You'll have 2 pieces which are 5.25 by 4.5. And we're going to work on the left and the right independently. So this will be the left hand side. Along the 5.25 inch side, score at 1/2 and 2.5. Rotate 90 degrees. The 1/2 inch tab is at the top, and score down or make a pencil mark at 2 inches on the 1/2 inch score line. So this is indicating another place where we will cut. Rotate the piece 180 degrees. So on the opposite 4.5 inch side, make a pencil mark at 2. Flip the piece over to work on the reverse, and your 1/2 inch section will be at the top, and then draw a pencil line at 2.5 inches down to the score line, which is level with 2.5 inches. So this is creating an indicator so we can make sure that we get our tray in the right position. So this is our left hand side, and I would just mark this section at top just so you know which way up the piece is going to sit. So for the right hand side, again your piece will be 5.25 by 4.5. Along the 5.25 inch side, score at 2.75 and 4.75. Rotate, and along the 4.5 inch side with the 1/2 inch section at the top, score down at 2.5 inches to the score line, or make a pencil mark on the score line at 2.5 inches. Rotate 180 degrees and make a pencil mark at 2.5 inches. Flip the piece over, so your 1/2 inch section is at the top, and make a pencil line at 2 inches down through the first horizontal score line down to the score line, which is at 2.5 inches. And again, you might want to mark this one right and top. The next piece will form the back of the box, and this is 9 inches by 6 inches. Along the 9 inch side, score at 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches. Rotate so that the scored section is at the bottom, and make a pencil mark at 3 inches. Next we'll have our inner tray / separator. This is 6 3/4 by 2 3/4, and on all 4 sides score at 3/8 of an inch all the way round. And then finally we'll have our bars. My bars are 1/16 of an inch under 7 inches times 3/8 of an inch, scored at either end at 1/2 an inch, and I've got 3 of those. Now if you want to fit more bars in, you can do that, and the way to do that is to reduce the length of the glue tabs at either end. So if for instance you were to have this at 1/4 of an inch, you'd be able to get 6 bars in. But you can judge that as we come to that part of the make. So they are all of our pieces, and we're going to start with the front shaped piece combined with the base. First thing to do is to add the shape into the piece, and we're going to remove the section from the top point down to the pencil line or the end of the score line on this score line here, and we can cut through right to the edge of the cardstock. I'm going to use my craft knife and ruler. So line my ruler up level with the pencil mark at the top, and just make sure my ruler runs through the end of the score line here on this score line. So that's cut away that section like so. I'm going to repeat that on this side so you can see how this is giving us the shape of the back of the envelope. Get rid of the pencil marks as you go along because it's easier to do it whilst the piece is flat. We now want to remove this section here and this section here by cutting along this score line and down this score line. Now if you've made boxes before, you may have your preferred order of construction. You might like to cut and then fold and burnish what's remaining, or do it the other way round. I'm going to cut this section away whilst the piece is still flat, so I can then make sure I'm cutting away the score line in its entirety. And you want to make sure you do cut this neatly and straight, because this front edge that's left behind will be seen. So I'm going to remove that section like so. Do the same on this side. Fold and burnish. And then I'm just going to take a wedge from the ends of this glue tab that are left behind. Next we'll work on the sides. These will be in this orientation. First thing we want to do is we're going to trim away from the top of the second vertical from the left, so the top of this one, down to the pencil mark on this outer edge here, and we're going to do the same from this edge up to this edge here. Again, get rid of any pencil marks. Fold and burnish along the score lines. The next thing we want to do is cut up the score line in the 1/2 inch tab like so. So we're separating the glue tab. We're going to take a wedge from the top section along this section. Now this section here is going to be visible when you lift up the lid or the back of the box. So just think about how you're shaping those, because that is going to be seen. I'm just going to take a normal wedge from those like so. So do that on both pieces. We can start some of our gluing so that can be drying as we're working on the other pieces. So you want to sit your pieces in this orientation or flipped over. So I've got my left and my right. So this glue tab is going to sit on top there, and then this glue tab is going to sit on top there. So you might want to flip them up and stick them this way, but basically you want to end up with your piece looking like this. So we're adding a side on to the base. Now if we flip that over, these are going to come around like so, and then this is going to come up to form the front shape of the envelope. So I'm going to turn the piece over sit it in the shape that it should be, and then just on the inside I'm going to just draw around the top element like so. Just put some pencil lines in. So that gives me an idea that I need to add my glue within this section here and this section here in order to get these front pieces into place. So I'm going to do it around this way, add my glue, pull this one around, make sure you're getting a right angle on the base. And now if I stand it up, I can just make sure that my box is sitting square. I've got a nice shape at the bottom, and now I'm happy with that. I can go in and burnish that down so you can see how that comes together. So we'll put that one aside to dry. We're now going to start with the lid separator and putting the bars in. So we'll start by constructing the tray and fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Remove the intersecting squares on all four corners. Just sit your tray up. We'll now start to stick our bars in. So the first bar is running up to the cut end of the side pieces, and then the next bar is going to butt up against the piece that we've already added. So that's going to sit in like so, and then this one is going to sit in like so, and then the final one will sit at the back. What we're going to do is take our panel, we're going to add glue to 3 sides of the tray and sit it in against so that the base of the tray is level with the pencil lines which are on the inside edge of the sides like so. And then this glue tab is going to wrap around. So I will use my construction glue again, and I'm going to add the glue onto 3 sides. Slot that in, and you want the base of the tray level with the pencil line. So I'm just going to burnish. So we'll set that to dry. So we'll now work on the back. So again, we're going to recreate the envelope look, and we're going to cut away from this pencil mark up to the pencil mark at the top, and the pencil mark at the top down to this pencil mark here. Get rid of the visible pencil, fold and burnish, and fold and burnish this score line here in both directions. This is going to sit on the back of the box, and this is the section that's going to open to reveal the gift inside. Because it's my preference, I'm going to round off the corners of this tab, and I'm also going to use my circle punch to add a very small finger notch into this section, so you'll be able to get your nail in there and lift the lid out. Let's bring in the piece. We're going to sit the flap in the bottom, so you can see that my hinged piece is lining up with the base of the tray. I'm going to hold this back in this format. Just lift that up. I'm going to add glue all the way along. You must make sure that your opening flap is sitting below the tray. You don't want that to be glued. I'm then going to add glue onto the side glue tabs, and then I'm going to fold back the lid of the box, line the sides up, and then before anything has a chance to dry, I'm going to lift this lid back so there's no way that this lid can be sticking to the tray. So you can see that's sitting there quite nicely. So I'm just going to burnish that down. So we can now let that dry completely and think about our pattern paper and our decoration. I'm just at the part where I'm going to stick the pattern paper on the back. I did mention earlier in the video that you might want to consider adding the pattern paper on and then rescoring. Obviously I hadn't done that. I've cut my back pattern paper to shape, and this was cut from a piece of 8 1/8 times 5 3/4, and then at 5 1/4 from the bottom up here I've made a pencil mark, and that's created this top shape here, and it now needs to be stuck on, and I need to allow for this piece to fold back. So what I've done is I've laid it on the top, and I've just marked with a pencil where the score line is, so where this hinges. Put this pattern paper piece in the scoreboard with the pencil mark lined up with the track, and then scored and folded and burnished. And now when I stick this on the back, I have the score line ready in the back pattern paper piece, and everything should come together neatly. Here is the finished decorated box. I'll give you the sizes of the pattern paper that I used. This front section here, this was cut from a piece which was 2 3/4 times 5 3/4. Along the 5 3/4 inch side, I marked at 2 7/8 for the top of the point, and then marked at 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom, and then cut across. For the triangles, these were cut from pieces which were 3 inches by 2 1/8 of an inch, and then I measured down from the top. It ended up being 1/16 of an inch over 1 1/2, and that gave me these triangles either side. The sides were 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. The inside back was 5 3/4 times 5 3/4. I measured along 2 7/8 for the top point, and 2 7/8 down the side for these edge pieces. So overall, I'm really pleased with how the box has come together. I think it's a nice gift box, gift card combination. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.